Chapter 1. My boss got me pregnant on purpose. The first time he touched my hand, it felt like an accident. That's what I told myself anyway. It was late. Almost 9. And the office had emptied out hours earlier. The fluorescent lights hummed above us, casting everything in a tired, bluish glow. Outside the floor, 2 ceiling windows, the city stretched out in scattered gold and white lights, distant and indifferent. I was standing by his desk, clutching a stack of revised contracts, my fingers aching from typing all day. "You work too hard, Claire," he said softly. His voice carried that gentle warmth he used only with me. Or at least, that's what I believed then. "I just don't want to disappoint you, Mr. Whitmore," I replied, keeping my eyes on the papers. "Ethan," he corrected, the same way he always did when we were alone. His hand brushed mine as he took the documents. A light touch. A pause that lingered too long. I should have stepped back. Instead, I froze. My heart thudded against my ribs, like it was trying to escape me. I hadn't been touched like that in years. Not since Daniel left. Not since the miscarriage that hollowed me out and left me feeling like an abandoned house with broken windows. Ethan Whitmore was nothing like Daniel. He was composed, controlled, successful. The kind of man who owned buildings instead of renting apartments. The kind of man who wore tailored suits and expensive watches and never looked like he doubted himself. And he looked at me like I was fragile glass. "You don't have to be afraid of disappointing me," he murmured. I swallowed. I'm not afraid. But I was. Of losing this job. Of going back to waitressing. Of the mounting bills, sitting unopened on my kitchen counter. Of being 30. One and still renting a 1-bedroom apartment with peeling paint and a leaky sink. He stepped closer. The air shifted. "You know," he said, lowering his voice. "You're the only one here who actually understands me." I didn't know what that meant, but it felt like a gift. Like he was handing me something precious and rare. "I just try to do my job," I whispered. "And you do it beautifully." His hand moved from the papers to my wrist. Gentle. Firm enough that I couldn't pretend it was accidental this time. The building was empty. The security guard did his rounds only once an hour. My mind screamed that this was wrong. He was my boss. I was his assistant. There were rules, boundaries. Invisible lines drawn in ink. But his thumb traced the inside of my wrist, and my body betrayed me. I felt warmth spread through my chest, through the hollow spaces I had carried for so long. "I take care of the people who are loyal to me," he said. That should have sounded like a warning. Instead, it sounded like safety. The first time he kissed me, it was slow and deliberate. He didn't rush. He never rushed anything. His lips were warm. His hand sliding from my wrist to my waist, pulling me closer until the space between us disappeared. I remember thinking, this is a mistake. I remember thinking, I don't care. The city lights blurred behind my closed eyes. After that night, It became our secret. He would call me into his office after hours. Sometimes it was under the pretense of reviewing financial statements. Sometimes he didn't even bother with an excuse. He was careful during the day, professional, distant. No one would have guessed that at night. He pressed me against the mahogany desk that held $1,000,000 contracts and whispered my name like it belonged to him. "You're safe with me," he would say. I clung to those words. When he started insisting I stop using protection, I hesitated. "It makes you nervous," he said, gently one evening, brushing a strand of hair from my face as we lay tangled in his office couch. "It's just, I don't want to risk anything," I replied. He smiled in a way that made me feel silly. "Claire, I'm not some reckless teenager. I know what I'm doing." "That's not what I mean." He propped himself up on one elbow, studying me. "Don't you trust me?" Trust. The word settled heavily in my chest. After Daniel cheated, after the miscarriage, after I found myself alone in a hospital bed with empty arms, I had promised myself I would never trust blindly again. But Ethan wasn't Daniel. He brought me coffee every morning, exactly how I liked it. He noticed when I was tired. He paid attention. "I do trust you," I whispered. He kissed my forehead like a reward. "It'll be fine," he said. "I'll take care of everything. Everything." The word wrapped around me like a blanket. The first time I missed my period, I didn't panic. I sat on the edge of my bathtub, staring at the calendar app on my phone, counting days twice. My hands trembled slightly, but I told myself it was stress. The second missed period made my stomach twist. I bought the test from a pharmacy 3 blocks away from my apartment so no one would recognize me. The cashier didn't look up when she scanned it. To her, it was just another item. To me, it felt like a loaded gun. I took the test at 5 in the morning. The apartment was silent, except for the hum of the refrigerator. Pale dawn light seeped through the blinds, painting thin lines across the bathroom tiles. I placed the test on the sink. 3 minutes. I stared at my reflection. My face looked thinner than it had a year ago. Tired, hopeful, afraid. When the second line appeared, faint but undeniable, my breath left my body in a soundless gasp. Pregnant. I pressed a hand to my stomach instinctively, as if I could already feel something there. A child. After everything I had lost. After the tiny heartbeat that had once flickered on an ultrasound screen, and then disappeared, this felt impossible. Tears blurred my vision. I wasn't alone anymore. A small, trembling smile broke across my face. I imagined telling Ethan. I imagined him pulling me into his arms, telling me this was fate. That we were meant to have this child. That he would leave his cold, distant wife. That he would choose us. Because he had a wife. That detail floated at the edge of my happiness, like a dark cloud. I refused to look it directly. He had told me their marriage was complicated. That they lived more like business partners than lovers. That divorce would be messy, but inevitable. I just need time, he had said once. Time. I picked up my phone with shaking fingers and typed a message. We need to talk. It's important. He responded almost immediately. Come to my office tonight. The hours crawled. All day, I felt like I was carrying a secret made of glass inside me. Every movement felt fragile. Precious. When evening came and the staff trickled out, I smoothed my blouse over my still, flat stomach and walked to his office. He was standing by the window when I entered, his back to me. You sounded serious? He said without turning. I closed the door softly behind me. I am. He finally faced me, his expression unreadable. What is it? I took a step forward, then another. My heart pounded so loudly I was sure he could hear it. I'm pregnant, I said. Silence filled the room. For a second, I thought he hadn't heard me. Then I saw it. Not shock. Not fear. Something else. A slow, almost imperceptible smile touched his lips. Well, he said quietly, adjusting his cufflinks as if we were discussing quarterly profits. That changes things. The words did not land the way I had imagined. In my head, there had been movement. Urgency, his arms around me. Maybe even fear, but the kind that trembles into protectiveness. Instead, he stood there, immaculate and composed, adjusting the silver at his wrists, as though I had just informed him of a shift in market trends. I waited for more. For something human. He walked past me slowly, his shoes silent against the polished floor. I could feel the air move as he circled behind me. How far along? He asked. I don't know exactly. Maybe 5 weeks. He nodded once, thoughtful, not startled, not confused, thoughtful. You're sure? Wes. My voice came out smaller than I intended. I took 2 tests. He hummed softly, and when his hands settled on my shoulders, I flinched without meaning to. His grip tightened slightly, not enough to hurt, but enough to steady me in place. This isn't a disaster, he said. You understand that, right? I didn't think it was. I replied quickly. I mean, I know it's complicated. But it's not complicated. He interrupted gently. The way he said, it made my stomach twist. He moved around to face me, lifting my chin with his finger so I had to look at him. His eyes were calm. Too calm. I told you I take care of what's mine, he said. Mine. The words slid under my skin. I just thought, maybe you'd be surprised. I whispered. I'm rarely surprised, Claire. He smiled again, but there was something sharp beneath it now. Something deliberate. A memory flickered in my mind. The night he had insisted. The way he had dismissed my hesitation with a soft laugh. The way he had said, "It'll be fine. I know what I'm doing." My heart began to pound for a different reason. You knew. I breathed. He tilted his head slightly. Knew what? That this could happen. Of course I knew. His tone was almost amused. I'm not careless. No. I said slowly. Not that. I mean, you wanted this. The silence that followed felt heavier than any shout. He didn't deny it. Instead, he stepped closer until our bodies almost touched. "You said you lost a baby once," he murmured. "You said it broke you." "It did. And you said you felt empty." I swallowed hard. "I was listening," he continued. "I pay attention." My chest tightened. "That's not the same as planning it." "Planning." He let out a soft breath that might have been a laugh. "Claire, you think I leave something this important to chance?" The room seemed to tilt slightly. You told me not to worry," I said. "You told me everything would be fine. And it will be." He brushed his thumb along my cheek, tender as ever. "Now you're tied to me in a way that no one can undo." The words echoed inside my skull. "Tied?" I stepped back, breaking his touch. "Why would you say it like that?" "Because it's true." His composure never cracked. Not even a flicker of guilt crossed his face. "I can't just leave my wife overnight," he went on smoothly. "There are assets, investments, public image, but this..." His eyes dropped briefly to my stomach. "This accelerates things." Accelerates. My hands began to shake. "Did you ever intend to leave her?" I asked. "Less." "When?" "When it became necessary." "And this makes it necessary." He smiled faintly. "It makes it inevitable." I stared at him, searching for the man who had whispered that I was safe. The man who had traced circles on my skin and spoken about loyalty and trust. "You didn't even ask how I feel," I said. He frowned slightly, as if that genuinely puzzled him. "You told me you were happy when you found out." "I thought you'd be happy too." "I am." "Not like this," I whispered. For the first time, a shadow passed through his expression. "You're overthinking," he said. "You wanted a child. I can provide stability, security. You won't have to worry about rent or bills ever again." It sounded like an offer. It felt like a cage. "This isn't a contract," I said, my voice trembling. "It's a baby. And I intend to be a father." The certainty in his tone made my chest ache. "Do you love me?" I asked suddenly. The question slipped out before I could stop it. He didn't answer right away. Instead, he studied me the way he studied spreadsheets. Calculating, precise. "I care about you," he said finally. "That's not what I asked." "Love is inefficient," he replied. "What matters is commitment, responsibility, outcome, outcome." Tears burned behind my eyes. "I'm not a project," I said. He stepped forward again, his voice softening. "You're emotional right now. Hormones. Shock. That's understandable. Don't reduce me." I wanted to scream. Instead, I whispered, "Did you get me pregnant on purpose?" He didn't blink. "Yes." The word hit harder than if he had slapped me. "I wanted you secured," he continued. "You're valuable to me. I don't take risks with valuable things." My breath became shallow. "You think I would have left?" I asked. You might have, he said simply. People leave when they feel uncertain. Now there's certainty. I felt something inside me crack quietly. All those nights, I thought we were building something fragile and tender. He had been constructing something else entirely. You used me? I said. No, he replied calmly. I made sure you stayed. The difference between those two sentences felt like a canyon. I trusted you, I whispered. And that was wise. I let out a small, broken sound that might have been a laugh. You don't even see what you've done. I've ensured a future, he corrected. For who? For us. The word us sounded foreign now. My stomach churned. And for the first time, since seeing those 2 lines on the test, fear overwhelmed the fragile joy I had felt. You don't get to decide my future, I said. He reached for me again, but I stepped back farther this time. I already have, he replied quietly. The office felt smaller, the walls closer. The city lights outside no longer looked romantic. They looked distant, unreachable. I need air, I said. You're not thinking clearly. I need air. I turned toward the door, my hand shaking as I reached for the handle. Claire, he called. I paused but didn't face him. You're not alone anymore, he said. That should comfort you. It didn't. It terrified me. I opened the door and stepped into the empty hallway, the echo of my heels too loud against the silence. My chest felt tight, as if invisible hands were squeezing the breath from me. He had planned it. Every gentle reassurance, every soft promise, every calculated risk. I pressed a hand to my stomach again, but this time it wasn't protective. It was instinctive, as if I were trying to shield something fragile from a storm that had already begun. The hallway felt endless. Each step toward the elevator echoed, too loudly, like the building itself was whispering what I had just heard. My reflection in the glass walls looked unfamiliar, pale, eyes wide, lips parted in quiet disbelief. He wanted this. Not us. Not love. Control. The elevator doors slid open with a soft chime, and I stepped inside alone. The mirrored walls surrounded me on all sides. A woman stared back from every angle. Small, shaken, carrying a child conceived not from tenderness but from strategy. My hands moved to my stomach again. 5 weeks. A cluster of cells no bigger than a seed, and already its existence had shifted the ground beneath my feet. When the elevator reached the lobby, I walked past the night guard without meeting his eyes. The cool air outside hit my face like a slap, sharp and grounding. The city hummed around me. Cars rushing past, distant sirens, laughter spilling from a bar across the street. Life going on. Unaware. I wrapped my coat tighter around myself and started walking instead of calling a cab. I needed movement. I needed distance from the building that now felt like a trap disguised as opportunity. You're tied to me in a way no one can undo. His voice replayed in my mind, calm and certain. I stopped at a crosswalk, staring at the red hand flashing on the signal. My chest felt tight again. Was I tied to him? Or was he tied to me? The thought flickered briefly, but it didn't bring comfort. It only deepened the fear. Ethan wasn't the kind of man who lost control of anything. If he had orchestrated this, then he had already planned every possible outcome, including mine. By the time I reached my apartment, my legs ached. I climbed the stairs slowly. The familiar smell of old carpet and someone's burnt dinner lingering in the hallway. Inside, the silence swallowed me whole. I leaned back against the door after locking it, letting my bag slide to the floor. The apartment looked the same as it had that morning. Dishes in the sink, mail on the counter, the soft yellow glow of the lamp in the corner. But I felt different. I moved to the bathroom almost on instinct, pulling the pregnancy test from the trash, where I had buried it under tissues. The 2 lines were still there. Proof. I sat on the edge of the bathtub again. Just like that morning, but this time the joy was gone. He planned you? I whispered softly to my stomach. He planned you without asking me. A tear slid down my cheeks, slow and silent. I thought of the ultrasound room from years ago. The cold gel on my skin. The technician's forced smile when she couldn't find a heartbeat. The way Daniel had looked at his phone the whole time, barely present. You're too emotional, Daniel had said afterward. These things happen. But this wasn't something that just happened. This had been decided. I pressed my palm flat against my abdomen. I don't regret you, I whispered. I don't know what this means. My phone buzzed in the living room, making me flinch. I didn't want to look, but I did. Ethan's name lit up the screen. We need to be aligned on this. Aligned. I stared at the message until it blurred. Another one came through. I'll transfer money to your account tomorrow. You should start looking at better places to live. My throat tightened. Not are you okay? Not I'm sorry if I shocked you. Money. Relocation. Containment. I typed a response, then erased it. Typed again. Erased again. Finally, I set the phone down without replying. I walked to the window and looked out at the street below. A couple stood under a flickering streetlight, arguing softly. A dog barked somewhere in the distance. Normal problems. Normal lives. Was I overreacting? A small, trembling voice inside me asked, maybe this is stability. Maybe this is what security looks like when you're not used to it. But security shouldn't feel like suffocation. I slid down the wall until I was sitting on the floor. Knees pulled to my chest. He said he cared about me. But caring isn't the same as loving. And love doesn't trap. My mind drifted back to the nights in his office. The way he had watched me sometimes, not with hunger, but with calculation. I had mistaken intensity for devotion. How many times had he already decided things for me, without my knowledge? A wave of nausea rolled through me suddenly, and I rushed back to the bathroom, barely making it to the toilet in time. My body heaved, emptying nothing but fear. When it passed, I leaned against the cool tile floor, exhausted. "This is real," I whispered. The next morning, I didn't go to work. I texted the HR manager that I was sick. It wasn't entirely a lie. My phone buzzed again around noon. "You're not here." His message was short. I stared at it for a long time before replying. I needed a day. The response came almost instantly. "That's not how this works." My stomach dropped. "Not how this works." I typed slowly. "I'm not a machine, Ethan." 3 dots appeared immediately. "Don't start framing this like I'm the enemy." The audacity of it made my chest burn. "You admitted you planned this," I wrote. There was a pause this time. "Longer. I planned for our future. There's a difference. You didn't give me a choice. You had a choice every time you came to me." The words felt like a slap. As if consent to intimacy was consent to being manipulated. I threw the phone onto the couch, my hands shaking. Tears spilled freely now, hot and relentless. How had I missed it? The subtle steering. The way conversations always ended where he wanted them to. The way he framed his decisions as protection. By evening, there was a knock on my door. My entire body froze. I knew that knock. Measured, controlled. 3 firm taps. I didn't move. Another knock. "Claire." His voice called softly from the other side. Open the door. My heart hammered against my ribs. Go away, I thought. But he knocked again, louder this time. "I know you're in there." Oh, of course he did. He probably knew everything. Slowly, I stood and walked toward the door, each step heavy. I hesitated with my hand on the lock. "You can't just ignore me," he said, voice tightening slightly. I opened the door halfway, keeping the chain latched. He stood there in a dark coat, perfectly composed as always. His eyes scanned my face quickly, assessing. "You look pale," he said. "I didn't invite you." "You didn't respond." "That doesn't mean you get to show up." His jaw tightened briefly, then relaxed. "May I come in?" "No." The word surprised even me. Something flickered in his eyes. Annoyance, quickly buried. "We need to discuss logistics," he said calmly. "This isn't a merger. It's bigger than that." "Then treat it like it's bigger than that." Silence stretched between us. The hallway light cast sharp shadows across his face. "I'm trying to take responsibility," he said, "by controlling everything. By ensuring stability." "For who?" I asked again. "For my child." The emphasis made my breath hitch. "Your child. Not ours. Mine." I felt it then. Clear and undeniable. This wasn't about love. It wasn't even about me. It was about legacy. And I was just the vessel. The realization settled into my bones with a cold, unbearable weight. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. The hallway outside my apartment felt too narrow for the truth standing between us. "Move the chain," Ethan said quietly. "No." His eyes hardened, just slightly. Not anger. Calculation. "Claire, this is not a situation you can navigate emotionally." The words were precise, clinical. I am emotional. I replied, my voice trembling. I'm pregnant. And that's exactly why you need me to handle this. I handle this. Like I was paperwork. Like the life inside me was a clause to be negotiated. You don't get to handle me, I said. A muscle ticked in his jaw. Lower your voice. I'm in my own home. He exhaled slowly, adjusting his coat sleeve as if steadying himself. Let's not turn this into something hostile, he said. I'm here because I care about the outcome. There it is again, I whispered. The outcome. You're focusing on semantics. No, I said, tears filling my eyes. I'm focusing on the fact that you got me pregnant on purpose. His gaze didn't waver. Yes, he said it again. Without shame, without apology. A tear slipped down my cheek. I didn't wipe it away. Do you know what it feels like? I asked softly. To realize the person you trusted most was orchestrating your body? His expression shifted. Not to guilt, but to impatience. I didn't orchestrate your body. I created an opportunity. You created a trap. That's dramatic. My hands clenched at my sides. You knew I wanted a baby? I said. You used that. I gave you what you wanted. You gave me what you wanted. Silence fell again. The air between us felt charged, brittle. He stepped closer to the door, lowering his voice. You're spiraling. No, I whispered. I'm waking up. His eyes darkened slightly. You think this child would have existed without me? He asked. You think you would have found someone reliable? Someone capable? The cruelty was subtle, wrapped in logic. You're not my only option, I said, though my voice shook. Be realistic? The words pierced deeper than shouting ever could. Realistic. 31. Single. Modest income. No family nearby. He knew my insecurities because I had handed them to him like offerings. I would have figured it out, I said. With what resources? He pressed. Love doesn't pay hospital bills. Sentiment doesn't buy a house. And control doesn't equal safety. I shot back. Something flickered behind his eyes then. Annoyance finally breaking through the polished exterior. You're letting your pride cloud your judgment. I'm letting my instincts protect me. From what? Me? Wes. The word hung there. His face went very still. I have done nothing but elevate your life, he said. You positioned yourself as my solution. I replied. That's not the same thing. He studied me for a long moment, as if reassessing an investment that had suddenly become unpredictable. You're frightened, he said finally. That's understandable. But fear makes people self-destructive. I'm not self-destructive. You're pushing away the only person prepared to support you. I don't want support that comes with ownership. His gaze sharpened at that. You're carrying my child, he said, voice low now. That comes with responsibility on both sides. I agree. Good. But responsibility doesn't mean obedience. The hallway light buzzed faintly above him. For the first time since I'd known him, he looked slightly off balance. Not shaken, but irritated that I wasn't responding according to expectation. You think you can do this alone? He asked. I don't know, I admitted. But I know I won't let you decide everything. You're being naive. And you're being manipulative. The word landed. He inhaled slowly through his nose. Be careful, he said quietly. A chill slid down my spine. Is that a threat? It's advice. No, I whispered. It sounded like a threat. He stepped back then, creating a small but noticeable distance. I don't threaten people I care about, he said. You don't love people you control. His eyes met mine, and for a brief second something raw flickered there. Something almost human. I don't control you, he said. You removed my ability to choose. You chose me every night. That's not the same. His expression hardened again. This conversation is unproductive, he said. You need rest. We'll revisit this when you're calmer. The dismissal burned. I'm not an agenda item, I said. You're emotional. Well, I'm human. And I'm trying to secure our future. Our future. I repeated softly. Or your legacy. That struck something. His jaw tightened. Legacy matters, he said evenly. More than love. Wes. The honesty stunned me into silence. There it was. Not hidden anymore. Wes. My heart cracked quietly in my chest. So this is about your name, I whispered. Your bloodline. It's about continuity. And I'm just the means. You're the mother of my child, a not partner. Not equal. Mother. A role. A function. I won't be managed, I said, my voice suddenly steady. You're already connected to me whether you like it or not. That doesn't mean I belong to you. I never said you belonged to me. You said I was secured. He didn't respond to that. The silence confirmed everything. I need you to leave, I said softly. He looked at me for a long moment, measuring, calculating outcomes. You will regret isolating yourself, he said finally. Maybe. And when you realize you need me, I will still be here. Not because he loved me. Because he needed control. I don't want you here out of obligation, I whispered. He reached toward the door, almost as if to touch my face, then stopped himself. I'll transfer funds tonight, he said. You shouldn't stress about money. I didn't ask you to. You don't have to. That was his final word. He turned and walked down the hallway without looking back. I closed the door slowly, locking it, sliding the chain into place with shaking hands. The apartment felt impossibly small. I pressed my back against the door and slid to the floor, tears finally breaking free in heavy sobs. Legacy. Continuity. Secured. None of those words sounded like lullabies. None of them sounded like love. I wrapped my arms around my stomach, rocking slightly as if comforting both of us. I'm not your strategy, I whispered through tears. I'm not your asset. The baby hadn't asked for this. Neither had I. And for the first time since seeing those 2 pink lines, I understood something clearly and painfully. If I stayed close to him, my child would grow up in a house built on control instead of warmth. And I didn't know if I was strong enough to fight him. But I knew I had to try. That night, I didn't sleep. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, listening to the distant hum of traffic and the occasional footsteps in the apartment above mine. Every sound felt magnified. Every thought circled back to the same unbearable truth. He had chosen this for me. No, he had chosen it for himself. Around 3 in the morning, I sat up abruptly, heart racing. The room felt too small, the air too thin. I pressed both hands to my stomach, breathing slowly. I won't let you grow up feeling owned, I whispered into the dark. The decision formed quietly, not dramatic or loud. Just steady. I would leave. Not just the job. The city. By sunrise, I had packed a suitcase. It felt surreal folding clothes with trembling hands, pulling documents from drawers, stuffing my laptop into a bag. Each small action felt like betrayal and survival at the same time. He would be furious. That thought terrified me more than I wanted to admit. But staying terrified me more. I called the only person I could think of. My older sister, Marianne. We hadn't spoken much in recent years. Life had a way of widening distance between people who once shared everything. She answered on the 3rd ring, voice groggy. Claire, is everything okay? No, I whispered, and immediately started crying. There was a pause, then the rustle of sheets. What happened? I'm pregnant. Silence. Oh, she breathed. Okay. Is that good? I don't know. Her voice softened. We're at home. Do you need me to come there? No, I said quickly. I need to come to you. She lived 3 states away in a small coastal town where nothing urgent ever seemed to happen. Claire, she said gently. What's going on? I hesitated only a second. He did it on purpose. Ooh, my boss. The silence this time was heavy. Processing. He planned it. I continued, words spilling out now. He admitted it. He wanted me tied to him. Marianne inhaled sharply. That's not love. I know. Does he know you're leaving? No. Good. Her firmness startled me. Come here, she said. We'll figure it out. You're not alone. The words cracked something open in me. You're not alone. Not possession. Not legacy. Just not alone. By 8 in the morning, I sent a single email to HR stating I was resigning effective immediately due to personal reasons. I didn't elaborate. Then I turned off my phone. Not airplane mode. Off. The silence that followed felt both terrifying and holy. At the bus station, I kept expecting to see him. Expecting his car to pull up. Expecting his calm, controlled voice to cut through the crowd. But he didn't appear. The bus smelled faintly of coffee and worn fabric. I chose a window seat and placed my hand against my stomach as the engine rumbled to life. As the city skyline shrank behind me, I felt something loosen in my chest. Not relief. Not yet. But space. Hours passed in quiet stretches of highway and open fields. I watched towns blur by, each one unfamiliar and indifferent to my private storm. I turned my phone on only once halfway through the trip. 47 missed calls. Countless messages. Where are you? This is irrational. Call me immediately. You're making a mistake. I can fix this. Don't do something you'll regret. The last message ready. You can't erase me from this. My hands shook as I powered the phone off again. He was right. I couldn't erase him. He was part of the child growing inside me. But I could choose the environment that child entered. By the time the bus pulled into Marianne's town, the sky was streaked pink and gold. She was waiting at the station, arms folded tightly around herself against the wind. The moment she saw me, she rushed forward. I collapsed into her embrace. For the first time in weeks, I let someone hold me without calculation. She didn't ask questions right away. She just wrapped her arms tighter as I cried against her shoulder. You're safe, she murmured. Safe. The word felt different in her voice. It didn't sound like a contract. It sounded like shelter. The weeks that followed were not easy. Morning sickness came in relentless waves. Fear followed close behind it. Ethan sent letters when calls stopped working. Legal language. Claims of paternal rights. Offers of financial settlements that felt more like negotiations than care. But distance gave me clarity. With Marianne beside me, I began to untangle the emotional web he had spun. Love does not remove choice. Protection does not erase consent. Security does not require submission. I found a part-time job at a small bookstore near the harbor. It paid a fraction of what I had earned before, but the owner smiled at me like I was a person, not an asset. At 12 weeks, I heard the heartbeat. Fast. Steady. Alive. Tears streamed down my face in the dim ultrasound room. That's your baby, the technician said warmly. Not his legacy. Not his continuity. My baby. Ours, in the simplest and most human sense. One evening, months later, I stood on the beach alone. The ocean stretching endlessly before me. My belly had begun to show, a gentle curve beneath my sweater. The wind tangled my hair as I stared at the horizon. I thought about him sometimes. About the office lights. About the way he had smiled when I told him. I no longer mistook that smile for love. It had been satisfaction. Control. But as I rested both hands over my stomach, feeling a small flutter for the first time, I understood something else. He had planned to tie me to him. Instead, he had untied me from fear, because leaving him had forced me to choose myself. I don't know what kind of father you'll be, I whispered into the wind, speaking to the child, and perhaps to the universe. But I know what kind of mother I'll be. I would not orchestrate. I would not control. I would not secure. I would love. Even if it meant fighting. Even if it meant raising this child with complicated truths and unanswered questions. The sun dipped lower, painting the sky in deep orange and violet. For the first time since that night in his office, I felt something that wasn't fear. It was fragile. It was uncertain, but it was mine. Hope.